We live in a world where chaos can strike in an instant. Someone cuts you off in traffic, a friend betrays your trust, or plans fall apart without warning. And in these moments, emotions rise like a tidal wave: anger, frustration, sadness, fear. But here's the truth. The ability to control your emotions is one of the most powerful skills you can ever develop. Awareness is the first and most crucial step in learning to control your emotions. Without it, you're essentially walking through life blindfolded, reacting to everything around you without truly understanding why you feel the way you do. Most people are driven by emotions they can't even name. They lash out in anger, withdraw in sadness, or spiral into anxiety without ever pausing to ask, what exactly am I feeling right now? This lack of awareness keeps them in a reactive state where emotions control their actions instead of being tools they consciously use to navigate life. Becoming emotionally aware means paying attention to the signals your body and mind are sending you in real time. It's that moment when you feel your heart race, your palms sweat, or your chest tighten. These are signs, emotional cues that something is happening beneath the surface. Maybe it's anger, maybe it's fear, maybe it's disappointment or shame. But unless you take a moment to pause and identify what you're feeling, you're likely to act in ways you regret later. You might say something hurtful, make a poor decision, or sabotage a relationship or opportunity. Awareness gives you the chance to intercept that destructive pattern before it plays out. It also allows you to notice your emotional triggers. Triggers are the people, situations, or memories that consistently evoke strong emotional reactions in you. For example, maybe every time someone questions your competence, you feel instantly defensive or angry. Or maybe being ignored brings up feelings of rejection and sadness that trace back to experiences you had growing up. These patterns don't just happen. They're shaped by your past, your environment, and your beliefs about yourself. When you become aware of your emotional patterns and where they come from, you begin to understand that not every emotion you feel is entirely about what's happening in the moment. Sometimes, the present is simply echoing the past. Emotional awareness also includes accepting that all emotions, pleasant or unpleasant, are valid. So often, people try to suppress or deny what they feel. They tell themselves things like, I shouldn't feel this way, or I need to be strong, as if feeling sadness or fear is a sign of weakness. But denying your emotions doesn't make them go away. It just pushes them deeper, where they often show up later in even more destructive ways. When you allow yourself to feel what you feel, without judgment, you open the door to emotional intelligence. You begin to listen instead of resist. You become curious instead of critical. You no longer fear your emotions, you begin to understand them. Awareness also transforms your relationships. When you are aware of your emotions, you're less likely to project them onto others. You stop blaming people for how you feel. Instead, you take responsibility. You can say, I'm feeling angry and I need a moment, instead of yelling or shutting down. This kind of emotional honesty builds trust and opens up communication. It also allows you to recognize when other people are acting from their own emotional wounds or fears. You respond with empathy instead of escalating the conflict. The more aware you are, the more freedom you have. You are no longer just reacting out of habit or impulse. You gain the ability to choose your response. That's what makes awareness so powerful. It gives you space. In that space, you get to decide who you want to be, how you want to act, and what kind of impact you want to have. It may not come naturally at first. It takes practice to pause and observe your internal world. But over time, that pause becomes a habit, and with it comes control. Control not by force, but through understanding. That is the real beginning of emotional mastery. Emotions are powerful forces within us. They can inspire us to take action, warn us of danger, connect us more deeply to others, and reveal our deepest needs and desires. But problems arise when we start treating emotions not as signals to be understood, but as commands to be obeyed. This is where many people lose control, when they let their emotions become their masters instead of viewing them as messengers. Emotions are not the enemy. They are information. They are indicators of what is happening inside us and how we're interpreting the world around us. They are not instructions. And when you learn to see emotions in this way, you stop being controlled by them and start using them as tools for insight, growth, and conscious action. Think about anger, for example. It often comes up when we feel wronged, disrespected, or powerless. Anger is trying to tell us something, that a boundary has been crossed, that something we value is being threatened. But acting on that anger without thinking, by yelling, insulting someone, or making a rash decision can destroy relationships, damage your reputation, or make a difficult situation worse. The anger itself isn't the problem. It's what you do with it that matters. If you pause and listen to the message beneath the anger, you might realize you need to speak up, set a boundary, or express your feelings more clearly. That's the power of seeing emotions as messengers. They guide you, but they don't drive the car. Fear is another emotion that often takes the driver's seat when it shouldn't. Fear shows up when we're uncertain, vulnerable, or stepping outside of our comfort zone. It can keep us safe by alerting us to real dangers, but it can also keep us small by convincing us to avoid challenges, take no risks, and stay silent. When fear is in control, people stop themselves from applying for new jobs, sharing their ideas, or pursuing dreams. But when you realize fear is just a messenger trying to protect you, you can choose to thank it, understand it, and then still move forward.
You acknowledge the fear, but you don't let it paralyze you. Even emotions like sadness or guilt have messages. Sadness might be showing you what you care about, what you've lost, or what needs to be healed. Guilt might be pointing out something that goes against your values or someone you've hurt unintentionally. If you ignore these emotions, they can build up and eventually break through in unhealthy ways. But if you listen to them, you can learn something important about yourself. You can make amends, seek support, or take action that leads to real change. Emotions are part of your inner compass. They help you understand where you are and what matters to you. When people let their emotions become their masters, they often end up regretting their actions. They say things they don't mean, make decisions they later wish they hadn't, or lash out in ways that push others away. But when you treat emotions as messengers, you give yourself a chance to act with intention. You create space between what you feel and what you do. In that space is wisdom, clarity, and control. You can choose your response instead of being driven by a knee-jerk reaction. It's important to remember that emotions don't last forever. They rise, they peak, and they pass like waves. But if you let those waves toss you around, you'll constantly feel like you're drowning. If you learn to observe them, ride them, and understand what they're trying to tell you, you can stay balanced, even in the middle of emotional storms. You don't have to suppress how you feel. In fact, ignoring emotions can be just as dangerous as indulging them. What matters is your relationship to those emotions, whether you are listening to them or being led by them. By learning to decode what your emotions are really saying, you become emotionally intelligent. You become someone who responds with purpose, who communicates with clarity, and who maintains composure even under pressure. You begin to lead your emotions instead of following them blindly. And in that shift, you find true personal power, not by avoiding emotions, but by mastering how you work with them. In moments of emotional intensity, one of the most powerful things you can do is practice the pause. This simple concept, pausing before reacting, can transform your relationships, decision-making, and self-control. When emotions rise quickly, whether it's anger, frustration, fear, or even excitement, there is often an automatic urge to respond immediately. That response might be shouting back in an argument, sending a message you'll regret, making a rash decision, or shutting down completely. But in those moments, acting without thinking can lead to consequences that are far greater than the emotion that triggered them. Pausing gives you the space to break that chain of reactivity. The pause doesn't have to be long. Sometimes just a few seconds can be enough. It might be a deep breath. It might be mentally counting to 5. It might be stepping out of the room, taking a short walk, or even saying, "Give me a moment." That brief delay creates distance between the stimulus, the thing that triggered your emotional response, and your action. And in that space, you gain the clarity to choose a response rather than being driven by a reaction. Practicing the pause requires self-awareness and discipline. At first, it won't feel natural. In fact, it might feel like you're resisting the most compelling force in your body, because you are. Emotions can come with incredible intensity, making it feel like you have no choice but to respond immediately. But the truth is, you always have a choice. The pause is where you reclaim that choice. It's the moment when you take back control and shift from being reactive to being intentional. Think of times when you've said something in the heat of the moment and immediately regretted it. Maybe it was during a conflict with a loved one, a disagreement with a coworker, or a situation where you felt misunderstood or disrespected. The words came out before you had time to think, and once spoken, they couldn't be taken back. Had you paused even briefly, you might have recognized that your emotion was valid, but your immediate reaction wasn't necessary or helpful. You might have chosen a calmer tone, a better question, or simply silence. In that space, you might have even recognized that your emotional response had more to do with your own past experiences or insecurities than with what was actually happening in front of you. The pause also allows you to check your internal narrative. Emotions often come with thoughts, interpretations, assumptions, judgments that might not be true. You might feel ignored and immediately think someone doesn't care about you. You might feel criticized and assume you're being attacked. But in reality, the other person might be distracted, or trying to help, or simply unaware. Without the pause, you react to your interpretation as if it's fact. With the pause, you have the opportunity to ask yourself, is this true? Am I seeing this clearly? Is there another way to view this situation? That moment of reflection can shift your entire experience and prevent unnecessary conflict or stress. In situations of high stress or pressure, the pause can be the difference between acting with integrity and reacting out of impulse. Leaders, athletes, parents, partners, anyone who deals with emotional intensity benefits from developing this skill. It doesn't mean ignoring your emotions or pushing them away. It means feeling them fully, recognizing them, and then deciding what to do with them from a place of stability and self-control. Over time, practicing the pause builds emotional resilience. It strengthens your ability to stay calm in chaos and make decisions that align with your values instead of your temporary feelings. The pause is not avoidance, it's wisdom. It doesn't mean weakness, it shows strength. Anyone can react, but it takes maturity and self-awareness to pause, reflect, and choose a better path. It's in the pause that you begin to master your emotions instead of letting them master you. Building emotional resilience is one of the most valuable investments you can make in your personal development. It's the inner strength that allows you to recover from setbacks, manage stress, and face life's challenges with a clear mind and steady heart. Emotional resilience doesn't mean you won't experience difficult emotions. It means you've developed the capacity to feel deeply without being overwhelmed, to fall without being broken, and to navigate hardship without losing yourself in the process. It's not about denying pain or pretending to be strong. It's about becoming mentally and emotionally flexible enough to handle life with grace. The process of building emotional resilience begins with accepting that difficult emotions are a natural part of life. No one is immune to disappointment, failure, rejection, or loss. These experiences are inevitable, but what separates resilient people from the rest is their ability to face those moments without giving up or falling into despair. They don't see hardship as a dead end. They see it as a challenge to grow, a test to overcome, or even a lesson to be learned. They feel the sting of emotion, but they don't allow it to define them or dictate their future. One of the core practices that help build emotional resilience is developing a regular habit of reflection. This might come through journaling, meditation, or simply setting aside time each day to sit with your thoughts and feelings. When you create space to check in with yourself, you become more aware of what's going on internally. You can identify patterns in your emotional responses, understand what triggers you, and begin to work through unresolved feelings. This ongoing self-awareness helps you handle future emotional waves with greater calm and clarity. Another essential part of resilience is maintaining perspective. In emotionally charged situations, it's easy to catastrophize or feel like the world is closing in. Resilient people train themselves to zoom out, to look at the bigger picture. They remind themselves that pain is temporary, that mistakes are part of the learning process, and that one event does not define their entire story. This shift in mindset is not automatic. It's built through practice and intention. Sometimes it requires asking better questions, like what can I learn from this? Or what does this situation make possible that wouldn't have happened otherwise? By shifting your focus from fear and loss to learning and growth, you reinforce a mindset that supports emotional strength. Equally important is the role of relationships in building resilience. Human beings are not meant to go through life alone. Resilient people cultivate strong support systems, friends, mentors, family, or community, where they can turn for encouragement, perspective, and connection. Being able to talk about what you're feeling with someone who listens without judgment is a powerful way to process emotions and regain stability. Vulnerability is not weakness, it's the gateway to healing and strength. And emotional resilience is not about doing it all on your own. It's about knowing when to reach out, ask for help, and let others remind you of your strength when you forget it. Physical health also plays a critical role in emotional resilience. The connection between mind and body is undeniable. When you take care of your body through sleep, nutrition, movement, and rest, you create a stronger foundation for emotional well-being. Chronic stress, poor sleep, and lack of exercise can make it much harder to regulate emotions and cope with stress. A resilient mind needs a resilient body to support it. Making your physical health a priority is not just about fitness, it's about emotional endurance. Lastly, resilient individuals practice self-compassion. They understand that perfection is an illusion and that failure is part of the journey. Instead of judging themselves harshly for their emotions or missteps, they offer themselves kindness and patience. They don't pretend to have everything figured out, but they keep showing up. They understand that being emotionally resilient doesn't mean being unshakable. It means being able to bend without breaking, to feel deeply without being destroyed, and to keep moving forward even when the road is uncertain. Taking responsibility for your emotions and actions is a cornerstone of emotional intelligence and personal growth. It means recognizing that while you may not control everything that happens to you, you are always in control of how you respond. It's about owning your reactions, your decisions, and your behavior without slipping into self-blame or victimhood. The difference between responsibility and blame may seem subtle, but it is incredibly important. Responsibility is empowering. Blame is paralyzing. When you take responsibility, you acknowledge your power. When you accept blame, you often fall into guilt, shame, and self-criticism, which offer no path forward. Many people confuse taking responsibility with blaming themselves for everything that goes wrong. They internalize pain, failure, or rejection as signs that they are flawed or inadequate. But that's not true responsibility. That's self-punishment. Real responsibility starts with self-awareness. It's the ability to step back and say, this is how I feel, and this is how I responded, without attacking yourself or others. It allows you to assess the situation honestly and ask, what role did I play in this, or what can I learn from this? It's a shift from finger pointing, whether at yourself or someone else, to accountability and growth. When you take responsibility, you stop waiting for others to change before you can feel better. You stop handing over your emotional power to other people's actions, words, or approval. It's easy to say, they made me angry, or they ruined my day, but when you do that, you're giving them control over your inner world. Taking responsibility means saying, I felt angry when that happened, and I chose to react in a certain way. That doesn't mean excusing bad behavior or tolerating mistreatment. It means acknowledging that your feelings and actions are yours to manage, not someone else's to dictate. This mindset creates emotional freedom. Instead of being a victim of circumstance, you become the author of your response.
And that matters in every area of life. In relationships, taking responsibility allows you to communicate more openly and build trust. It allows you to apologize sincerely when you're wrong without feeling like it diminishes your worth. It lets you express your needs and boundaries without guilt or defensiveness. In your career, it helps you own your mistakes and learn from them instead of hiding or deflecting. It shows maturity and integrity when you can say, I could have handled that better, or next time I'll do things differently. Taking responsibility also allows you to forgive yourself. When you acknowledge a mistake without falling into blame, you can grow from it without being consumed by regret. You understand that your past decisions were made with the knowledge and awareness you had at the time. You recognize your imperfections without letting them define you, and that self-acceptance is what keeps you moving forward. Blame keeps you stuck going in circles of shame and guilt. Responsibility moves you towards solutions, healing, and progress. This principle also helps you hold others accountable in a healthier way. When you're not fixated on blame, either of yourself or others, you can approach conflict more constructively. You can say, here's what I'm feeling, or here's what I need moving forward, instead of attacking or shutting down. You stay grounded in your own power, and that clarity can transform conversations, resolve misunderstandings, and lead to deeper connection. Ultimately, taking responsibility is an act of strength, not weakness. It means facing life with your eyes open, your mind clear, and your heart grounded. It's choosing not to be a passive recipient of whatever happens, but an active participant in how you respond, grow, and show up. You can't always choose your circumstances, but you can always choose your response. That is where your real power lies. Top performance